What's up, everybody? And welcome back to another Blueprint session. We are so fortunate today to have with us Naomi Osaka. I think this interview will be very inspiring on so many levels. And Naomi, so excited to have you today at the Young CEO Conference.
Thanks. It's cool to not physically be here, but I guess talk to you.
Yeah, the new normal of here, yeah. Well, I texted you after you won the U.S. Open, but I wanted to congratulate you again in person because, beyond winning the major, I think that for me, when I was growing up as a kid and as a sports fan, and even now today, these moments that happen that you can't plan for, that become so important in the climate of the world, are things that you kind of never forget. And I think that happened and that transcended beyond tennis. Did you understand the impact of the moment and what was going on? Or were you focused on the kind of task at hand throughout?
Honestly, I didn't realize the impact, mostly because we were in a bubble. So, I don't know, aside from my phone and, to be honest, I don't really have a lot of numbers, so not a lot of people text me. Um, so yeah, I was just sort of focused on the tournament. I went there to try to win, and that for me was my ultimate goal. But if along the way I can raise awareness, that was sort of the path that I tried to do.
And then, so throughout the tournament and in general, what's your kind of relationship with your phone and kind of where you kind of have to lock in and when you have to put that down? Because you've heard LeBron James in the past talk about how he'll go like blackout during the playoffs. What has been your philosophy?
For me, I don't ignore a lot of texts, but I do sort of forget about them sometimes. I would say I don't black out, but to me, the only numbers that I would call are like my mom, my dad, and my sister, and then everyone else is sort of like secondary.
Yeah.
If there is something really important, I do think that I try to respond to it.
Yeah. So what about the night you won? I was fortunate to be with KD the night he won both of his championships. And while you're celebrating, there is a part of you, at least from what Kevin's told me, that you're instantly kind of thinking about what's next as a competitor. That night, were you able to just enjoy the moment and really understand the kind of gravity of what had been going on?
So yeah, I did celebrate. But we were still in the bubble, so it wasn't like a full-on celebration. My sister actually flew there like 3 days before to surprise me, so she actually quarantined for a bit. So I like to say she had a very strong belief that I was going to win. But yeah, I would say because my last two Grand Slams are really different from this one, I think I try to take it all in stride and appreciate everyone for being very different. But we did celebrate.
So let me start a little bit further back. Anytime I've had the opportunity to talk to an athlete or, really anybody that's the master at their craft, I'd love to understand that moment where you kind of made that switch. And if that moment happened where you kind of consciously remember saying, you know what, I want to be a professional tennis player and committing yourself to doing that. And tennis, more than any other sport and profession for that matter, happens probably younger than in any other situation. What do you remember that time committing and kind of making that the priority to go and become a professional tennis player?
Okay. So for me, I started tennis when I was 3. And personally, for me, I didn't feel like I was going to do anything else. So I think that mentality was when I was very young. Maybe like 7, I thought that I was going to be a professional tennis player because that was the only life that I knew. And of course, there was always times in my mind that I was like, I want to do something else. Maybe I want to be like a zoologist or something. But that was always like a second choice. I think the goal was always to be a professional tennis player.
Did you love did you love tennis, or did you feel that you were good at it and there was some kind of obligation to go after this talent that you had? And with that, who were your inspirations? Who in women's tennis at that point were you kind of using as your benchmark?
So actually, I was not that great as a kid. I was pretty lazy. Some would say I'm still kind of lazy right now, but yeah, I was always kind of chasing after my sister, and a lot of people compared us to Venus and Serena. And Serena's actually, I think a lot of people know this, but she's the tennis player and person that I looked up to as a kid, and I still do. Um, but yeah, I would say definitely I had a moment where I wasn't really sure about, how good I was and if I could be able to pursue it. But I think something clicked around like when I was 15 or 14 years old.
I saw somewhere online, I actually did some homework, and I saw that your father had kind of seen the way the Serena Venus's father had formed that connection through tennis. Was your family's relationship with your like quest to becoming good at that age, did it feel right? Were they, because a lot of times with young athletes, it's a challenge. It's trying to balance wanting to still kind of be a young person, but knowing that, and your parents knowing that what has to get done to get there sometimes isn't what you want to hear. Was their relationship with you and your kind of development one that you look back on as like a positive as a kid?
Um, yeah, I would definitely say it's a positive. I get along really well with my parents. Of course, there were moments. I think everybody has their moments with their parents, but for the most part, it's a very positive experience if it is an experience. And yeah, I think I don't know. For me, I've always had this great feeling of wanting to take care of my parents, to make sure they're okay, and just to succeed and do well enough for them to be able to, not work if they wanted to. And hopefully, I'll keep going in that direction.
So is it that you think that like was your ultimate driver more so than, I want the most majors or I want to be playing in the finals versus Serena?
That's always a dream as a kid. For me, I've always wanted to play Serena in a Grand Slam final, and it was crazy when it happened. But yeah, I would say the biggest goal was to take care of my family, and everything else was sort of a consequence of that.
Did you recognize when you turn pro in tennis, like where's the difference? Right, you're playing in junior tournaments, and then you kind of get to the point where your skill is recognized and you can start to play up. Do you remember that consciously, where you saw your hard work had now paid off, and you were starting to be seen as a real threat and a professional tennis player?
So for me, I actually didn't play a lot of junior tournaments. I spent most of my time just practicing with my sister. So when we did play tournaments, the majority of them were professional events. And I feel like I wasn't really able to gauge other people's like opinion on me. Because we were just sort of like two sisters and their dad just coming to the tournament and playing. But yeah, I feel like I did pretty well in those events and I was able to climb relatively quickly. So,
Were you able to balance school? Like I always wonder with young athletes, especially tennis players that have to travel or young golfers, how is the school balance?
so the school balance for me, I was homeschooled. And it was online. So, between matches and stuff, I would do homework. We would go back to the hotel and then I would have to call the teacher and stuff like that. But I was really lucky because the school that I was like doing online, they let you submit things like earlier. So there are moments where we didn't really play tournaments. So I was able to do a lot of schoolwork and then focus on the matches the next week. So I graduated pretty early.
When you got into tennis, did you know anything or think anything when you became a professional, right? So you're in this mode now, you're starting to travel a bit. Do you start to recognize that the world is different, that you're a pro, there's new pressures, there's new stresses? And who is the team that you have around you? When a basketball player comes in and gets drafted, they'll have their agent or agency, and they'll have maybe a business manager, and parents stay around a lot, especially right out of high school with athletes. What is that team once you start to become a pro? And tell me a bit about those like early stresses with all the outside pressures.
Um, okay, I'm gonna start with the team question. I think, of course, you have your agent. For me, when I was like first starting off, my dad was my coach. And to be honest, I was just traveling with him for the longest. But then when everything started happening, I had like my agent, a coach, a fitness trainer, and a physio. So that's sort of my core right now, and also a hitting partner. I'm not really sure how many people basketball players have. I'm not sure if it's a larger group or not. But that for me is like the core.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a larger group in that it's a part of a team. So a lot of those resources that come with the team you get that you mentioned. But with that, do you find tennis a bit isolating at times? I mean, it is a very isolating sport. And you have to probably lean on that team a bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would definitely say that's true. I think, even in New York, we were very isolated and we had a lot of long talks with each other. And I was staying in a house there, so I would just sort of find the company in my team, and they sort of saved me in that sense because tennis is really isolating and you don't really have team members to lean on or teammates because every other player out there is sort of your enemy. So I would definitely say it's really important to like find people that you trust.
And I would assume that at most tennis players with that have their teams. Is there much camaraderie around the tour or players that you can kind of look to? And not naming any names, but overall, is the kind of culture around the locker room, so to speak, where people talk to one another? I've never really heard much about that.
Um, I can only speak on me. I don't really have that many friends like on tour. Not on purpose, but I just feel like I'm so busy. I'm sort of just like in and out of the locker room. I know that other players have friends that are also tennis players, but a part of me also thinks like everyone wants to win the tournament. So there's this sort of like thing of you don't want to get too close to another player. I could be making this up in my mind, but yeah.
No, I understand what you mean. So then so you're the CEO of your world, and as you should be, rightfully. How do you kind of continue to motivate? It's like there's so many tournaments you could play in to stay at a certain level. I know that, qualifying or winning at certain tournaments throughout the year help your ranking. But when do you get to kind of check out a bit? And how do you self motivate to keep the whole engine running?
Um, I mean, self motivate on the court. I just, I just think about, wow, that's bad. I just think about like wanting to win. I don't know. I don't really step on the court and play a match and just think about, how to motivate myself. I just think about playing the point and stuff like that. So if you're talking about while I'm playing a tournament, self motivating, I think that I want my name to be the last person standing. Um, but yeah, if you're talking about off the court, then self motivating, I don't know. I feel like I'm busy most of the time, and there's so many exciting opportunities that that's the thing that keeps me motivated.
So, and what are some of those things that you're working on? I mean, I've seen some of your off the court interests, but I mean, I'm sure you do a lot of that for passion and love, and it's good to kind of check out and, like you said, get out of that headspace. What are some of the things you're kind of focused on now?
For me, focused on, I feel like I'm learning so much, like every year, and every year I think my interests sort of change. And I want to do new things. But as of right now, I'm really interested in like fashion stuff, and I think people might be able to sense that. So I have a lot of really cool things coming out this year and next year. But yeah, it's gonna be really fun.
And what would you say are like, so you've won 3 majors, you've been the number one player in the world. Tennis is, a sustained thing. Legacy is a lot about your sustained success. Um, do you have a goal for your ultimate legacy, or do you look at just maybe the next major in front of you?
Um, I mean, of course, I have a goal, but at the same time, I've sort of realized that the path isn't as like, clean cut. It's not as perfect as I would like dream of. So I think my focus is the next major or the next tournament that I play. I think I do better when my goals are short term, as opposed to like thinking about wanting to win 10 Grand Slams or whatever. I feel like that puts too much pressure on me. So yeah, just wherever the wind blows, hopefully I'll do well.
Well, I think your humility is something amongst many other of your traits that young people should really pay attention to. It's inspiring because you have achieved so much and you have so much more to achieve, but you really have this incredible sense of calm about you, at least in my communication with you, and a real humility. So let's let the young CEOs have a chance to ask a few questions. Chloe, if you want to come up.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Naomi, thank you for your honest answers and great questions, Rich. All right, y'all. So it's time to grab the mic. We're going to take a few questions. So make sure you request it, introduce yourself, ask your question. I know we have a bunch of requests, so let's see if we can let some of you in here. And we got people from all over. Let's see. I'm seeing Canada. Wow. Ohio, Oregon. Where else? Michigan. That's awesome. Okay, let's see who we got.
Hi. Can you guys hear me good? Perfect. My name is Ujala. Just wanted to congratulate you, Naomi, on winning the Grand Slam. My question for you is, since you're so young, do you feel that you get discredited by people that are older than you? And if so, how do you combat that barrier? Because I do also face that my day-to-day.
Okay, so I would say personally, I honestly haven't interacted with a lot of people. I would say all the people that I've interacted with have been really nice, and they sort of see what I could potentially bring to the table. Of course, I think if anyone would discredit me for my age, maybe my agent would know that more than me because he's sort of the one interacting on the day-to-day. For me, most of the time, I sort of get like a sense that, how do I describe this? Like sometimes I go to meetings and, of course, I love listening. I think that I get to learn from a lot of these meetings because I started off as a tennis player, and for me, everything that I hear is a chance to learn. But yeah, definitely, I feel like sometimes people don't think that what I say is valid. And of course, I can see where they're coming from because I am a tennis player, but I wasn't really sure if it had to do with my age or my occupation, if that made sense.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. If I can follow up on that, if that's okay. Because I know you're very outspoken, like about politics and whatnot. And I was wondering, like, again, I guess in the same realm, like if you get into arguments with people that are older than you and then they use your age to kind of just discredit what you're saying, if that makes sense. Hopefully that's not a dumb question.
No, it's not a dumb question, but I personally have never been in a situation like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not like face to face. I don't remember everything that I've ever tweeted. Hopefully I haven't gotten into an argument with someone there, but yeah, personally I've never been in that situation.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for answering, and then again, congratulations.
I can tell you though that if people older than you are discrediting your ambition or discrediting your point of view, then A, they're probably not the right people that you should surround yourself with, and B, they're doing it wrong and you're not, because you got to ask questions. Sometimes the question that seems like the dumbest question is really one that opens up everything else. So whoever this person is that's inspired asking this question, you tell them to leave you be and you keep being ambitious
All right. Thank you so much, guys, again. And thank you for hosting this event. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to answer my question.
Thank you. Questions. All right. Let's see if we can get someone else in here for our next guest. And we will approve that. Perfect. And Rich, that was a great point too. It's really hard when you're dealing with, I'd say, closed-minded and simple-minded people as well.
Agreed.
So I think we've all, at some point, have kind of faced something similar. But it does come with age because people question you because they're like, you don't have enough experience. You can still bring new ideas to.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Hello.
Wow. First and foremost, thank you guys for having me on here. Big shout out to my mentor, to Sean, who works at Overtime, for this opportunity. I definitely wanted to ask you, being really young, 23 years old, if I'm correct, please correct me if I'm wrong. How does it feel being, a person of color that's really taking charge, in your area of expertise? It goes without saying that 2020 has been quite the year for a lot of people of color. And how do you, keep your hopes up, and what are some advice for people that are looking to make their own impact wherever possible?
I would say advice for keeping my hopes up, or like what I do. I always remember the things that my dad said. And I always feel like also life experiences have sort of helped me. But I think just because we're in a bad place right now doesn't mean we have to be in a bad place forever. And for me, that's something that I always tell myself in my head, because I don't remember the exact saying, but it's like there's the light after the tunnel or something like that. And I think that that's all really, really true. And I don't know, like advice for me, I feel like I'm still learning so many things. So maybe you have advice for me. I think the biggest thing that I can always tell someone is just to keep your ears open, because, you don't know everything, and there's always so many opportunities to learn. And I think that that's what 2020 has taught me. So yeah, maybe if you have advice for me, that would be cool.
I mean, look, for me at least, like earlier, Dan Porter said, just embracing the randomness. Without question, I always just hit up people like, hey, do you mind, talking to me about how you got to where you are? I'm all about storytelling. I'm an advertising major, of course. So just hearing about how people, came from where they are, humble beginnings, it just really gives me that reassurance that I can make it too, right? I have just as many opportunities and, privileges, and can get the experience to get to where I want without as many obstacles, So it's definitely cool seeing people like yourself and other people in the industry, really making a name for themselves and laying the brick down for us all to walk on, right? So thank you. I commend you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for asking your space. And we do have time to get in one more. So let's see if we can get one more person in here before we move on to our next session. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Chloe, first of all. And Naomi, it's just a privilege to be able to sit here in front of you, ask you a question. Actually, I even worked the U.S. Open this summer, actually, so I did see you a few times. And the work that you put in, the diligence and the tenacity that you did while doing it was just incredible to see, coming from a fellow 23-year-old. So I just wanted to shout you out on that. And I did want to ask you about your legacy, but I know Mr. Kleiman already asked you that. So I'm just going to ask, when are you going to go back on tour? Because I watch the Tennis Channel like every morning when I eat breakfast, and I want to see you back on my TV. So when do you think that's going to happen?
I would say I'm going back on tour in Australia, so probably in January next year. Yeah, thank you for saying everything. I don't know, it's kind of odd to hear when people say they've seen me like doing like work and stuff in the US Open or whatever tournament, because I always feel like I don't know if I could have done better and stuff like that, but hopefully
done better. Girl, you won.
I don't know, but hopefully if we walk by each other and I said hi, or I don't know. I feel like people always tell me I'm really straight-faced and scary. So hopefully I was friendly.
Yeah, you were. I spoke to you literally 4 times, and you were very, like, you're soft-spoken. Everyone knows that. But you're super sweet. You responded every single time. And your team was incredible, too. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that last question. I really want to thank you, Rich and Naomi. You guys were awesome. And up next, we have a pep talk with my people, Larry and Megan. So I'll see all of you in the next session.
Thank you. Thanks, Naomi.